Hey everybody, Matt Barton here with this week's Broker Minute or Two. I hope your 2024 is getting off to a good start. Hey, so this one is done in real time today. I actually just came back from a Code of Ethics hearing, which is not always a wonderful experience, but it gave me the topic for today. We're told we're not to go into details of a Code of Ethics once it's completed, but I can take the general tone of what we were there for. One of our agents had been accused of not respecting an agency relationship. And I will just say at the front end that our agent was spectacular in this and did things by the book, and it made for a very good, relatively easy Code of Ethics hearing. But why do I bring this up? Listen, if you're paying attention to what's been going on in the last 6-12 months and the national lawsuits against realtors and our practices, at the forefront of that is agency, not just agency, but buyer's agency. And so it's amazing to me. We just heard recently that Oregon has recently created buyer's agency within the state and actually made it required. Well, what is the requirement here in the state of Utah? I've covered this many times, but I'm going to quickly reiterate it. Our licensure, right, and the administrative rules that are given to us by the Division of Real Estate that applies the Real Estate Licensing Practices Act, which is the law, says that when we start agency with a person, we are to have that agency defined in writing. That's rule number 2. Rule number 9 says that when we write an offer for that client, that we are to reaffirm that agency relationship in the purchase contract. And so actually the law and the administrative rules are very clear, and yet we still have people that don't abide by the law, and therefore they create exposure for themselves. And the tone of this message is, how do we do pain avoidance? And so one, so that you don't get charged of not respecting the Code of Ethics, and there's multiple things in the Code of Ethics. When somebody reaches out to us, or we start an interaction with an individual, one of the first words out of our mouth should be something along the lines of, do you have an existing agent, or do you have an existing agent relationship with a brokerage, right? And quite often we'll get the answer, no. I don't think it's adequate to stop there. We should say, I just want to make sure you understand, did you sign any documentation, right? Because sometimes we hear, oh yeah, I had an agent show me a house, but they're not my agent. That should be a flag for us to dig a little further. Our agent did do the appropriate digging, right? And ask them, say, well, a lot of people don't understand. Did you sign anything with a broker or a brokerage or your agent, right? I think that's the second step we need to take. And there's beyond that, there's not any specific requirements, but this is about pain avoidance, right? And are there any additional steps that we could take to avoid pain, to go and defend ourselves, say, in a Code of Ethics hearing? And this one, again, not required, but I would suggest it. If there's any hint, any question, if you feel like maybe I'm not getting the straight story, I think you should ask, oh, who was the brokerage you were working with? Who was the agent you were working with? And then reach out to them, that broker and agent, and say, so-and-so has started to work with me. I did my job and asked them. They said they had worked with you previously and that there was no longer agency. I just want to confirm that, right? And if you get some documentation, your life is smooth. So I wanted to show you the things that govern this. In addition to the national lawsuits I mentioned, the Division of Real Estate has this section in blue. Excuse all my other notes. I live in these things, right? It says that a licensee shall not enter or attempt to enter into a concurrent representation when the licensee knows or should know that the principal has an existing agency representation agreement with another licensee. That presupposes that you asked the questions and did some digging to make sure, not just, well, they didn't say they had an agent. That's never going to fly, not only with the division, but also with the Code of Ethics. Here's what the Code of Ethics has to say in regards to this, and there's a lot of similarities. Realtors, so that's the state who gives us our license. This is the code that we abide by because we're realtors. Realtors shall not engage in any practice or take any action inconsistent with the exclusive representation or exclusive brokers relationship agreements that other realtors have with clients, right? So my point is all of the things that govern us kind of line up with this, and yet we still sometimes find agents who are working without any agency representation. It's bad for your licensure, and yes, the DRE will light you up if they find out you're doing that. Secondly, it's a potential code of ethics violation, and thirdly, it does create some exposure and puts your commissions in jeopardy. I'll just say this: in Oregon, who just introduced agency buyer's agency being mandatory, my understanding of that law is if you don't have that in writing, you are not entitled to commissions. So we do a good job, right? We've taught on this for a long time, and by and large, you guys do a fantastic job. This was really just an exercise to reiterate how to avoid potential pain. It's never about can I defend myself. The question is always how do I keep myself from ever being challenged in the first place? And so this was a refresher on best practices. Keep up the good work, and I hope your 2024 is off to a great start. Thanks.